Let us welcome back to the Schilling Show. She's been a guest here several times over the years. Claudia Rosett, journalist in residence, the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Hey, Claudia, welcome to the Schilling Show.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
All right. I want to talk about North Korea and Iran today, and I know that you have expertise in both areas. You know, we talk a lot about North Korea, but I have a feeling we don't know all that much about it, or maybe we don't let on what we do know. What do we actually know about North Korea and its operations?
Well, we know that it's a totalitarian state that has conducted 3 nuclear tests so far, despite a series of nuclear freeze deals, warning about the nuclear deal with Iran, where North Korea really pioneered the way to cheat on these things. And we know that the Chinese, of all places, people, have just warned that North Korea is not only making more nuclear weapons now, but could have 20 bombs by next year, 40 in a few years. In other words, there's a lot going on here that's extremely alarming. They refuse to recognize South Korea. Their stated ambition is to unify the Korean Peninsula under the totalitarian third-generation leader they've got. Any direction you look, it's a very bad scene.
Claudia Rosett, it seems that Kim Jong-un is a borderline insane, at least the way he's portrayed, and he disappears and goes away. We've heard of horrible things and deaths he's perhaps ordered against members of his own family. What do we know about him?
He's not actually insane in the sense that he's incapable of running a government that's capable of doing very bad things. Okay, we might regard him as a sociopath, a psychopath, somebody who's either really indifferent to the horrendous things that his regime does to the people of North Korea in order to stay in power. But he has so far managed to stay on top in a place, full of plots, intrigues, surveillance, secret police, obscurity. We know that he had his own uncle executed not long after he came to power. The regent who was supposed to be overseeing the success of the transition, as soon as it was pretty clear that the transition was succeeding, he had his uncle put down, basically. In fact, humiliated and then executed. So we're dealing with somebody who is not like your neighbor, but in that sense, he's not normal. But he's clearly capable of handling strategy, and to the extent that he's so far seems entrenched in power and is making nuclear weapons and continues to threaten us. In fact, at this point, North Korea has acquired road-mobile intercontinental ballistic missiles that our own government is telling us would give it the ability to target the United States with a nuclear strike.
How is it that this government in North Korea, and I know you've seen the pictures like I have, the satellite imagery from the nighttime with nothing in North Korea and South Korea totally lit up, how can they survive? What is their economy, and how are they acquiring all this technology?
Some of them don't survive. There was a terrible famine there in the mid to late 90s, in which an estimated 1 to 2 million people died. That's just this horrendous scene. Things are better than that now, but the way that regime stays on top is by absolutely depriving the people beneath it of any rights at all, and effectively running North Korea as a slave state. So for the people at the very top, life is extremely plush and comfortable, if somewhat bizarre. And they're constantly put to the test on loyalty. They face the threat that Kim Jong-un's uncle ran right into in the end, which is if anybody twitches in a way that displeases the top leader, they can end up dead. But for the rest of the people, they have no rights. They have no right to travel as they want to. They have certainly no right of free speech. If you want to gauge how unfree North Korea is, most dictatorships have some sort of dissident population. If you ask who are the dissidents living in North Korea, you can't name any because they die. They aren't even able to raise a protest and survive.
In many ways, the media has portrayed North Korea as a semi-puppet state of China. So I was very interested to see that Chinese are expressing concern. Is this truly out of their control, or is there something else going on, Claudia?
Oh, I think there's something else going on. Look, China has a lot of ability to influence things in North Korea because they can shut down the traffic across the borders. It was the Chinese who sold North Korea the vehicles for the road mobile intercontinental ballistic missiles that North Korea is now parading. Those enormous vehicles came from China, where that's what you need for a mobile rocket launcher. And then China said, oops, we thought they were for lumber. Well, that's just hard to believe. And China has been a major hub of proliferation traffic for both North Korea and Iran. So China, for them to say we're shocked that North Korea is developing this nuclear capability is disingenuous. They may be somewhat bothered, but basically North Korea is not likely to target China with its nuclear weapons. It's targeting America and America's allies, the enemies of totalitarian states. And my read on why China would be raising this alarm is this may be prelude to a push to return to North Korean nuclear talks, where China, which have greatly elevated the status of China in the past because America treats China as the host, the helper, that sort of appeals to China. Can you persuade North Korea to come our way? It makes China important. Given the enthusiasm of the current U.S. administration for nuclear deals, witness Iran, it would not surprise me if the next move they make, there's sort of a terror trifecta going on here. They're dealing with Iran. They just announced they're going to recognize Cuba, and then there's North Korea. It's sort of the situation that this administration has really not addressed, as North Korea has tested 2 nuclear devices on President Obama's watch and is apparently making nuclear weapons on a scale that suggests to me it's not just for use for nuclear extortion and threat by North Korea. When they're making that many, if they're on track to make that many nuclear bombs, they're probably going to sell them.
So, Claudia, what are the options that the United States has at this point?
Nuclear talks will not do it. North Korea is well-versed, really experienced in cheating at these, and anything that's sort of a voluntary exchange, I think, would be folly. Kim Jong-un is not going to give up that nuclear program unless he is coerced somehow into it. And that's not going to happen at a happy exchange with people smiling around the bargaining table. I don't think that's happening for Iran either. You know, the deals that we're cutting, the history is terrible. And 21 years ago, there was a nuclear freeze deal reached with North Korea, and here we are with North Korea, building up a nuclear arsenal. But the first thing that the U.S. could do is find some way to reestablish its credibility as a superpower that is really willing to use that power. There's no attractive, nice course. Something has to happen to scare Kim Jong-un enough so that he would back away from this. And ultimately, unless that regime in Pyongyang comes down, the threat will remain. So the real answer is, and it's a tough one, but this is the world we've now arrived at as after all these years of nuclear deals, it's the best thing that the United States could do is not go in and legitimize North Korea with another set of nuclear talks, but undermine that regime and be prepared. Our military trained, in fact, for the contingency that regime collapses. That's the way the threat comes to an end.
So if that regime collapses, would it do so organically, or is that something that could be somehow assisted either overtly or covertly?
Well, a lot of factors there. I would be lying to you if I said I could predict it with any kind of certainty, but it could happen organically, like the Soviet Union. It's also possible that there are people within the leadership in North Korea who are extremely unhappy with the situation. They see how the rest of the world works, and North Korea is a truly bizarre, disturbing place. As more defectors come out of there, there is the possibility of somebody running a coup, of something that would actually finally displace the Kim dynasty that has been in power since Stalin installed the current dictator's grandfather after World War II.
Finally, I wanted to get into the Iran and North Korea axis, and if they could be sharing nuclear expertise, or maybe they are likely doing so.
It would astonish me if they were not. President Obama's administration has been extremely coy on this subject. When the question is asked directly, officials either dodge it or retreat behind closed doors to give Congress classified briefings. But North Korea and Iran have collaborated in missile development for decades, and their partnership is one of weapons traffic, basically hostility to the West, especially the U.S., and weapons traffic for a long, long time. And there have been reports in the press of collaboration on nuclear matters. There's never been a confirmation from an official U.S. source that this is so. There are many signs that suggest it probably is. The certainty remains to be established. We do know that they were both members, part of the A.Q. Khan Pakistan Nuclear Proliferation Network, which was sort of a clearinghouse for nuclear material and expertise. So, again, it would astonish me if they were not collaborating on nuclear matters, as well as the known collaboration on missile development, which makes it all the more dangerous that while President Obama is promising us that Iran is going to be put in the corner with no pathway to the bomb, well, one obvious pathway to the bomb is North Korea, which is the only country, as far as I know, to have tested nuclear weapons in this century. It's the go-to place to test a bomb in plain sight or work on it as a back shop. And remember, North Korea did the reverse of that, helping the Syrians build a nuclear reactor that was destroyed by the Israelis in 2007. Syria is the mascot state of Iran. Again, we have never had confirmation from an official source that Iran was involved in that, but it would be astonishing if they were not.
Claudia Rosett is a journalist in residence with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. If people want to follow you online or get more information, Claudia, tell them where they can do so.
Sure. On defenddemocracy.org and on TJ Media, which is the blog site where I write things.
Thank you so much for joining us here once again on The Schilling Show.
A pleasure to be here. Thanks a lot.